Hello everyone! Welcome to the September's Plan With Me video, which is a big mixture of things. I debated about doing crystals as the theme for a while, but thought that a lot of people have done it. How do I put a twist to it? And the Pantone challenge have been going on Instagram. Pantone is a standard color code that can be used to communicate in art and design, and Pantone cards have a swatch of one color along with the code or the name of that color. Artists on Instagram have been painting on these cards to create aesthetic scenes that goes with that color. So I thought I'd draw the crystals on these cards that I draw myself, and now it's a little bit more exciting. I also wanted to do a crystal theme because of the Minecraft Caves and Cliffs update that added amethyst geodes, which is like one of the more pretty things in the game, but I didn't want to do just amethyst. So there are crystals of different shapes and sizes in this cluster for the cover. To be more dramatic, some of them are floating out of the card. I also added these sparkles and circles to show the shininess of the crystals. To add some more things, as mentioned, there are also hanging stars, somewhat because I've been folding lots of paper stars and wanted to include them as a prop. Since I added sparkles for the crystals, I didn't want the stars to be randomly placed, so I had them attached to strings, along with the Pantone card. Since I added sparkles for the crystals, I didn't want the stars to be randomly placed, so I had them attached to strings, along with the Pantone card. And not going to lie, it took me a while to get the shape of the stars that I liked. I didn't include the struggle, but it was there. I kept the background a light color, and since Pantone cards don't have borders in real life, I used the clipping tool to hide the edge. There are 8 different colors for this theme since there are many types of crystals, but they're not too bright or too pastel, and I think they looked good together. I'm filling in this ruby crystal and then using an opaque white pen to add highlights here. Since crystals are so reflective, I didn't worry too much about where I put the highlights. I just made sure to put a decent amount. I'm sure there are methods to make it look more realistic or shiny, but I was content with how this first one looked. We're going to fast forward this process a little bit. It is repeating the same thing, but with different colors and on different shapes. I put September in all caps as the name of the card and the cover was done. I pasted it on the front page of my bullet journal as always, and also on the page inside the book. Here's a glimpse of how I draw the monthly lines. I just have a line that's 5 boxes in width and another line that's 6 boxes in height to make sure all of the dimensions are correct because it's so inconvenient to erase a precise amount using Goodnotes eraser for some reason. I digress. I used the hanging stars, this time in the color yellow, with blue strings. If you're looking for a quick theme, this could be a theme on its own. You'd only have to draw one star and some lines and arches for the strings. Super simple, but also very cute and dreamy. One important thing to keep in mind is to try not to have the stars hanging at the same level across the page. Try to vary up that height. At the bottom, the crystals are growing wildly with the Pantone cards in the background. I try to make very different shaped crystals here. You can find tons of ideas on Pinterest for other crystal shapes if you don't like my weird ones. This did take a while, so if you don't have a lot of time, I suggest reusing crystals, but if you have a lot of time, it could be a relaxing activity. So I drew the Pantone card on a different layer from the crystals so that the lines are separate, and then I duplicated them and filled them with different colors. I also got rid of the edges, similar to the cover page, and went on to fill the crystals, making sure that the color of the crystal wouldn't blend in with the Pantone card. Don't forget to add highlights to the crystals. You could also add some shadows, but I omitted that for simplicity's sake. The cards are for lapis, rose quartz, aquamarine, and amethyst. Since the words were harder to read due to the crystals, I used an opaque eraser to slightly take away parts of the crystals that is covering it, and I really like how it turned out. It looks foggy and mystical. Our cursive style for the month is thin and long cursive. There's a lot of space between the letters and looks very modern. With that, we're done! Here's another glimpse of how I outline my pages to know what elements I need. We're jumping to notes first for this month because there's a bit of a change in my pages, and also the style of this page ended up being more coherent with the monthly page than my other pages. So here we are. I promise I didn't just have 3 pages for this month, since usually this is one of the last few pages. The card colors I'm using are carnelian, honey citron, rose quartz, and blue calcite. For the card, I drew these longer and smaller crystals, or thinner crystals that poke out of the card, and I love how simple they look. For the color of the crystals, I made sure that they contrast well with the background. In this case, primary and secondary, but also if the background was a cooler color, such as blue or purple, the crystal would be a warm color such as red or yellow. I also varied the opacity of the highlights because it is harder to see highlights when the color is lighter, like pink or mint, so I would make sure that the white is less opaque compared to the highlights on purple or blue. For the carnelian, I reused the cover's crystals cluster to save some time. Oh, that was a tongue twister. I added pre-made circles for my notes as well to save some time in the future. This month, I decided to do a weekday and weekend schedule that I would follow. I pre-wrote this, and one of my goals is to have a consistent time I go to bed and wake up, so I wrote on the timeline that I will get out of bed at 6:30, which might change, we'll see. And I'm not calling this an ideal schedule because it should be a realistic schedule that I know I could follow. It will just take a little bit of getting used to. You can see that I have the same shaped crystals with a bunch of different colors, and they're going to be used for this and the following pages. I just pre-made them beforehand since it is the same process over and over again, and y'all don't have to see that. I added some of the crystals and then some sparkles dotted around the page. Overall, a much easier and quicker page to complete. The tracker page is also much different, mainly because I'm tracking completely new things. So because I'm trying to follow a routine, I wanted to make sure I documented how well I'm able to follow that routine and my feeling about how I did for that day. I also wanted to track my productivity, and this is not only for work, but for things I need to get done in my personal life. Things like chores or meal prepping, or even watering the plants mean that you're being productive. And then that makes you less guilty for taking some time to yourself. I also wanted to write down the achievements for the month to keep me motivated for next month. I added some crystals to the right margin of the page, slowly building up from denser crystal placements to hanging stars at the top. I like that there's a lot of elements, but the page still looks very simple. And here's week number 1. There are only 4 days in this week, and there will be 5 weeks in this month because I didn't want to cram more than 7 days into one page. So each day for this first week has a Pantone card, which are honey citron, aquamarine, lapis, and ruby. I drew another crystal cluster, and the shape is actually similar to how the amethyst cluster looks like in Minecraft, so that's a plus. I used this cluster for the honey citron card as well. I then filled in the color for the crystals and the sparkles. I decided to use blue since it really pops out from the red here, and added highlights. Then we repeated the process for the rest of the cards. In Goodnotes, after pasting everything I needed, I rearranged the cards and drew more rectangles to divide up the space before labeling each day. I also forgot to add a mini calendar, which is always needed, and I highlighted the first week. For the final touch, I added some hanging stars. That is all. Definitely click that like and subscribe button if you've made it this far, and check out my Instagram for some more content. I'll see you soon!